Quite sure whether I really want to see a snare drum at 9 o'clock or so in the morning. But anyway, it's just great to see such a full theatre, and really I must thank Herbie Hancock and his colleagues for such a great presentation. One of the interesting things, of course, is the combination of that raw hand on the instrument and technology. And of course, what he said about listening to our young people. Of course, my job is all about listening. And my aim really is to teach the world to listen. That's my only real aim in life. And it sounds quite simple, but actually it's quite a big job, because, you know, when you look at a piece of music, for example, if I just open my little motorbike bag, we have here, hopefully, a piece of music that is full of little black dots on the page. And, you know, we open it up and I read the music. So, technically, I can actually read this. I will follow the instructions, the tempo markings, the dynamics. I will do exactly as I'm told. And so therefore, because time is short, if I just play you literally the first maybe 2 lines or so, it's very straightforward, there's nothing too difficult about the piece, but here I'm being told that the piece of music is very quick. I'm being told where to play on the drum. I'm being told which part of the stick to use. And I'm being told the dynamic. And I'm also being told that the drum is without snares. Snares on, snares off. So therefore, if I translate this piece of music, we have this idea. And so on. My career would probably last about 5 years. However, what I have to do as a musician is do everything that is not on the music. Everything that there isn't time to learn from a teacher, or to talk about even from a teacher. But it's the things that you notice when you're not actually with your instrument that in fact become so interesting, and that you want to explore through this tiny, tiny surface of a drum. So there we experience the translation. Now we'll experience the interpretation. My career may last a little longer, But in a way, you know, it's the same if I look at you and I see a nice, bright young lady with a pink top on, I see that you're clutching a teddy bear, etc., etc. So I get a basic idea as to what you might be about, what you might like, what you might do as a profession, etc., etc. However, that's just, you know, the initial idea I may have that we all get when we actually look and we try to interpret. But actually, it's so unbelievably shallow. In the same way I look at the music, I get a basic idea, I wonder what technically might be hard, or, you know, what I want to do, just the basic feeling. However, that is simply not enough. And I think what Herbie said, please listen. Listen. We have to listen to ourselves, first of all. If I play, for example, holding the stick, where literally I do not let go of the stick, you'll experience quite a lot of shock coming up through the arm, and you feel really quite, believe it or not, detached from the instrument and from the stick, even although I'm actually holding the stick quite tightly. By holding it tightly, I feel strangely more detached. If I just simply let go and allow my hand, my arm to be more of a support system, suddenly I have more dynamic with less effort, much more. And I just feel at last one with the stick and one with the drum, and I'm doing far, far less. So in the same way that I need time with this instrument, I need time with people in order to interpret them, not just translate them, but interpret them. If, for example, I play just a few bars of a piece of music for which I think of myself as a technician, that is someone who is basically a percussion player, and so on. If I think of myself as a musician, so on, there is a little bit of a difference there that is worth just thinking about. And I remember when I was 12 years old and I started playing timpani and percussion, and my teacher said, well, how are we going to do this? You know, music is about listening. And I said, yes, I agree with that. So what's the problem? And he said, well, how are you going to hear this? How are you going to hear that? And I said, well, how do you hear it? He said, well, I think I hear it through here. And I said, well, I think I do too, but I also hear it through my hands, through my arms, my cheekbones, my scalp, my tummy, my chest, my legs, and so on. And so we began our lessons every single time tuning drums, in particular the kettle drums or timpani, to such a narrow pitch interval. So something like that of a difference, and then gradually and gradually. And it's amazing that when you do open your body up and open your hand up to allow the vibration to come through, that in fact the tiny, tiny difference can be felt with just the tiniest part of your finger there. And so what we would do is that I would pop my hands on the wall of the music room, and together we would listen to the sounds of the instruments and really try to connect with those sounds far, far more broadly than simply depending on the ear. Because of course the ear is, I mean, subject to all sorts of things. The room we happen to be in, the amplification, the quality of the instrument, the type of sticks. etc., etc. They're all different. Same amount of weight, but different sound colours. And that's basically what we are. We're just human beings, but we all have our own little sound colours, as it were, that make up these extraordinary personalities and characters and interests and things. And as I grew older, I then auditioned for the Royal Academy of Music in London. And they said, well, no, we won't accept you because we haven't a clue, you know, of the future of a so-called deaf musician. And I just couldn't quite accept that. And so therefore, I said to them, well, look, if you refuse me through those reasons, as opposed to the ability to perform and to understand and love the art of creating sound, then we have to think very, very hard about the people you do actually accept. And as a result, and once we got over a little hurdle and having to audition twice, they accepted me. And not only that, what had happened was that it changed the whole role of the music institutions throughout the United Kingdom. Under no circumstances were they to refuse any application whatsoever on the basis of whether someone had no arms, no legs. They could still perhaps play a wind instrument if it was supported on a stand. No circumstances at all were used to refuse any entry, and every single entry had to be listened to, experienced, and then based on the musical ability, then that person could either enter or not. And so therefore, this in turn meant that there was an extremely interesting bunch of students who arrived in these various music institutions. And I have to say, many of them now in the professional orchestras throughout the world. The interesting thing about this as well, though, is quite simply that not only were people connected with sound, which is basically all of us, and we well know that music really is our daily medicine. I say music, but actually I mean sound, because, you know, some of the extraordinary things I've experienced as a musician, when you may have a 15-year-old lad who has got the most incredible challenges, who may not be able to control his movements, who may be deaf, who may be blind, etc., etc. Suddenly, if that young lad sits close to this instrument, and perhaps even lies underneath the marimba, and you play something that's so incredibly organ-like almost, I don't really have the right sticks perhaps, but something like this. Let me change. Something that's so unbelievably simple, but he would be experiencing something that I wouldn't be, because I'm on top of the sound. I have the sound coming this way. He would have the sound coming through the resonators. If there were no resonators on here, we would have... have a fullness of sound that those of you in the front few rows wouldn't experience, those of you in the back few rows wouldn't experience either. Every single one of us, depending on where we're sitting, will experience this sound quite